And then thanks again for joining us, everyone, for today's Brisbane Building Efficiency Program information session. Again, my name is Adrienne. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the city. I'm joined today by Alejandra Chase, the Sustainability Fellow for the City of Brisbane, who is leading implementation of the Building Efficiency Program this year and will be giving today's presentation. Alejandra, take it away.
Thank you, Adrienne, and good afternoon, everyone who's attending the session. And thank you for those who register to learn more about the program. So the Brisbane Building Efficiency Beyond program is a city initiative created with the goal of recognizing high-performing buildings and helping inefficient buildings improve their energy and water usage. The compliance cycle started last year with commercial buildings and is continuing this year with industrial and multifamily buildings. There are different paths that a building can take to get in compliance. All of those paths are displayed in this screen, and we will be discussing them shortly. So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, what do you need to do to get your building in compliance? So the first step is to either submit an exemption form or complete your pathway determination form. These forms are due May 15. Once you complete your forms, we will review your documentation and confirm your exemption or your pathway. I included in this PowerPoint a link to our website so that we can navigate it together and see where these forms can be found. So if you go on your browser and type brisbanecat.org/BBEP, you will be taken to this website right here. Adrienne, could you please let me know when you're able to see the city's website on your screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So that link will take you to this website, and on the left side, you will have to click the Beyond Requirements, because this is the program that we are discussing today. And you have to scroll down. Okay, it's back. And so you will have to scroll down past the flyer, and you will see your pathway determination form, the exemption form, and the audit form for those buildings that will need to get their audits. You will also find a how to comply comprehensive guide for this program that I find really helpful. For the pathway determination form, I just wanted to briefly share with you in this presentation today. So this is what the pathway determination form looks like. It will require you to complete your contact information, your building information, this section, and then the pathway that you are trying to take with your building, as well as supporting documentation. Going back to the main website, you will also find the exemption form. Okay, so here's the exemption form. You will ask the same, your contact information, your building details or information, and then the type of exemption that you are trying to apply to. You could apply for a full exemption or a partial exemption, and then you will need to provide some documentation as to support your exemption claim. You'll also find on our main website your audit form if your building requires an audit. And this is the audit form. Again, you'll need to enter your contact information and your building information, as well as the type of audit that your building received and any supporting documentation. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. So let's talk about exemptions for a moment. So your building can qualify for a full or partial exemption. For a full exemption, one of the following statements needs to be true about your building. Your building is scheduled for demolition or for sale. Your building has to be built within the last 5 years, or your building received renovations and it was occupied for less than 6 months. After you submit your exemption, as well as any supporting documentation for the exemption claim, you will hear from us regarding the status of your exemption. If you are exempted, there is no further action needed until May 2027 or May 2028, depending on your building type. So the May 2027 deadline will apply to commercial buildings and May 2028 for industrial and multifamily. Your building can also apply for a partial exemption if one of the following statements is true. More than half of the building was vacant for more than half of the prior calendar year, or no water or energy services for more than 6 months of the prior calendar year. Your partial exemption needs to be submitted by May 15. And if the city considers that the building can be partially exempted, you will need to submit your asset score full. Okay, so now let's talk about the Beyond path. Starting with the performance path, if your building does not qualify for an exemption. To take the performance path, you need to submit your pathway determination form with verification documentation certified by a qualified auditor or retro-commissioned professional by May 15. If the documentation provided is sufficient to determine that your building is on the performance path, no further action is needed until May 2027 or May 2028, depending on your building type. The other beyond path that your building can take is the prescriptive path, and that is applicable to buildings that require water or energy and energy improvements. To take this path, you need to submit your pathway determination form and include proof of contract with a qualified auditor by May 15. Subsequently, you will need to submit your water and energy report by July 15. Please note that your building could qualify for a hybrid path if your energy or water is high performance. So we include in this slide and the next one a flow chart for compliance that can be helpful when working through the requirements. So I'm going to go through this just fairly quickly. These are for your reference. Now, so let's discuss important dates that you need to keep in mind to be compliant. So the first date that we have coming up is May 15. And again, that's the day where you need to submit your exemption form or your pathway determination form with either your performance verification, if your building is a high performance building, or evidence of a contract with auditor if your building needs improvements. If your building needs improvements, you will need to submit your audit reports by July 15. If you're a commercial building, you will need to then submit by May 15 of 2025 your improvement plan, and by 2027, proof of completed improvement. And if you're an industrial or multifamily building, you need to submit your improvement plan by May 15 of 2026 and proof of completed improvements by May 2028. Okay, so to finalize or wrap up this presentation, we have included in this slide a list of resources that can be useful when trying to work through the requirements of this ordinance. I would like to highlight that we have included reference to the How to Comply guide for the program and a list of qualified service providers that are available to the public online in the City of San Jose's website. Please note that the City of Brisbane is not providing provider recommendations, but merely sharing available resources with you. And this takes us to the end of this presentation, and we'll be opening the floor for Q&A.
We've gotten one question so far. The question is, my building was renovated in 2020. Does it mean my building meets the requirements for exemption? I'd like to hear more about the scale of the renovation. If you'd like to fill us in on that, if you're comfortable doing that live. But generally, the exemption is intended for new buildings that were constructed in less than 5 years. If this was a full-scale renovation where the building was meeting new building codes and standards, then I think we could consider that a new building, meeting new building standards and therefore exempt. But again, it probably depends on the scale of that renovation. If it was, something more minor, that may not qualify.
Yeah, so the building went through a conversion from typical office building to life science, and then 90%, roughly, on top of my head, 90% of the spaces were renovated, and most of the systems were upgraded. But I'm not sure if that meets the qualification as a new building, because that building is not new.
Right. So if you, I assume at that point, if you did a 90% renovation, you probably worked with the city's planning and building department and had, a full-scale permit process. And at a 90% threshold, that would have been or should have been primarily subjected to new building code requirements. So I think that would qualify for an exemption. But perhaps we can follow up on some of those details to confirm those details after the fact, after today's presentation.
Yeah, and would it be okay that I email you
Of course.
with my questions? Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Great question, though. Are there any other?
I also have another question.
Sure.
Sophia again. So how do I know my building is high performance?
Fantastic question. Alejandra, was there a slide that covered the high performance options? I thought I remembered one and I don't see it now.
No. Would it be this in the supplemental slides?
I think we might have deleted or missed a slide. Let me pull up something on our website here. So this is actually a resource that Alejandra mentioned, our How to Comply guide. And this is a very comprehensive document that you can find on our website. And so you'll see here, table of contents. And so I'm going to just jump to the energy standards under the performance pathway. So there's, again, as Alejandra said, you can be high performance for energy or for water. Or for both. So for energy, it would be the latest version of the LEED program's existing buildings operations and maintenance certification. So going through that certification process, which is pretty rigorous, would qualify you as high performance. Or if you have an Energy Star score of 80 or greater, so you should be able to tell that through your benchmarking report for the prior year. Many buildings are eligible for Energy Star scores, but not all. So if you do not have an Energy Star score, we would look at your weather normalized site energy use intensity and compare it to your property type. And if it's 25% below the property type mean, then it would qualify. So those are kind of benchmark options. And then there's also improvements since your baseline, which would be the first year that you submitted a benchmarking report in this case. So if your Energy Star score has improved by 20 points or more over that period, or your energy use intensity has decreased 20% relative to that baseline year. So those are on your energy efficiency side. We also have options for distributed energy resources. So that's going to be if you have solar on your building, if you have energy storage at your building, if you have a grid interactive efficient building, which basically means it's got the ability to interact with the grid operator to optimize energy consumption and dispatch. That's probably a pretty rare case these days, but maybe something that will become more common in the future. And then if you have a fully decarbonized building, which would mean you've got on-site or are procuring carbon-free renewable energy in the amount that offsets your total energy use. So either of those options under energy efficiency or distributed energy resources would cover the performance path for the energy side. And then on the water standards, there's a few less options. There's not as many available metrics for water. Most buildings actually do not get Energy Star scores for water or water scores under Portfolio Manager. If your building is multifamily, you do get water scores. And if so, then if that's 80 or above or has been reduced by 20 points or more, you would be eligible. Otherwise, primarily we're looking at the water use intensity being at a threshold that is below the levels in this table here. So this is determined from an EPA data source and doesn't have all the building types. So if you don't fit into any of these categories, then we would work with you to find the closest fit or just evaluate your water score independently and give you a thumbs up on that. I apologize that we seem to miss that in the that slide in the presentation. Hopefully that answers your question.
No problem. And thank you. Yeah. Can you please share the link to this file in the chat?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So that's just a Google document. It is available, posted on our website on the same Beyond Requirements page that we referenced earlier, called the How to Comply Comprehensive Guide.
We have a question in the chat.
Thank you. So the question is, my building has a warehouse, office space, maintenance shop, and art studio all under one roof, and an outdoor washing area. 2 electrical meters, 2 water meters, multiple uses. I'm having trouble describing this functional diversity in Energy Star. Any suggestions? So the starting suggestion would be, in Energy Star, you can benchmark your building with different uses. So you can actually split out your usage into different use categories with associated square footages. If you're not already doing that, I would highly recommend that. At that point in time, I think Energy Star will actually recommend or assign an overall building use type. But if not, I would pick the one that is the majority of your square footage or your largest square footage. I'm trying to remember, there may be a multi-use building category. So if that exists, that's probably the best choice given the diversity of uses. But it's been a while since I looked into the different property use types. So I apologize that I don't recall off the top of my head if that's an option for you. Have you looked into that at all, or is that something that you found to still be a problem or concern? Yes, but still thinking. Okay. Understand. Well, feel free to try that out. Let us know how it goes. If you are still running into problems with that, definitely feel free to reach out to our program email, bbep@brisbaneca.org, and we can help you work through that. You're welcome.
I included our program email in the chat as well.
Great. Well, thanks, Alejandra. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to pipe up. Otherwise, I think what we'll do is go ahead and end the recording, and we can stick around for a few minutes if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask outside of the recording. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.